This video is your all-in-one Archer guide, reviewing the very best Archer pairs in Rise of Kingdoms, not based off of my opinions, but having actually gone in and done a bunch of testing to see which pairings work best in a 5v5 or 4v4 situation. So stick around in this video for a breakdown of the best Archer commander pairs, whether you're bringing 1, 2, 3, or 4 Archer marches, the best talents to use, and also a look at the best equipment. Let's get it going. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming, and today's video is sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms. And my goal in this video is to help bring you to speed on the best of all the things that you need to know about archers with the new Asher Beta Paul and Hermann Prime meta. In this video, we're going to do a couple things. We're going to start by reviewing the commanders that really don't make the cut. These are Archer commanders that I would not recommend that you use. From there, we're going to get a look at the best Archer combinations, and we'll get a look at the best Archer talents. Lastly, we'll get a look at the best Archer equipment, and spoiler alert, the Archer set is just really, really good. That's Dragon's Breath. But there are some alternatives that are very strong as well. We'll talk about some of those pros and cons in the tail end of the video. And I suppose maybe we'll touch very briefly on armaments, although, look, Archers are all about dealing skill damage, and I don't know that there's a whole lot of nuance to it. So we're going to get started by getting a look at the Archer commanders that you ought to pair together. And I should let you know that we did some testing just on stream the other day to figure out what some of these best pairs are. We did that testing in a 5v5 and 4v4 situation to get a sense not of duel performance, but in a group fight, sort of how does this look? And it's an oversimplification, but it's enough of a justification to me in how you might pair up these commanders. So let's get a look at those pairings now. First things first, let's talk about the commanders that I would really not recommend putting sculptures into, even in the early game, unless you're like a big whale. We've got Edward of Woodstock as far from meta. I would not recommend Edward of Woodstock because his rage cycle is too long. Some people like to use him as a secondary commander, although his damage is cut in half. That circumvents the rage issue and does take advantage of his 30% health and 30% march speed. Honestly, I think he's best used as a auxiliary skill or support skill, depending on what endgame KVK you're in. Then you've got El Cid. Look, he's free from gold keys, but he just does not do enough in the endgame to get the job done. In the very early game, you can do some cool stuff with Epic Hermann and El Cid in a silence chain, locking in 3 seconds of an enemy unable to use their active skill. Kind of cool. From there, you've got Thutmose. He's far from meta because he does not do enough skill damage. Rest of his kit's really cool. Not enough skill damage there. Ramses. His defense reduction is too duplicative with many other better commanders at your disposal, and the healing mitigation he does is basically irrelevant these days. From there, you've got Gilgamesh, who is a really sweet technical play for swarming a garrison, and he is good for that. I would swap him in to swarm a garrison. But his 30% health reduction on his active skill is not amazing compared to Skippy Prime hitting 3 targets with the same debuff. So his role is a little duplicative. He misses march speed. He's not where we want to be in the open field. And this is an open field list, of course. Then we've got Cyrus. He was goated for a long time, and people didn't realize it. But now, he's just not doing enough skill damage. Really cool debuff. Really great instant proc damage. Just not enough in his kit to make him relevant. And then you have Amani. Not relevant because at the end of the day, she's a garrison commander. And although Amani art was a thing for a while, there's just no march speed on this combo, and it just can't hang in the field anymore. Now, this brings us to the best Archer pairs. If you are going to bring one Archer pair to the open field, that pair, as of right now, is Zhuge Liang primary, and then Hermann Prime as the secondary. This combo absolutely just dominates. I mean, it's not surprising. You put the two best archers together and you shred. Very powerful combo. This is what I am using on my restart account where I bring only one Archer March. But let's talk about my main account. My main account, I bring 2 Archer Marches. That is where we start to bring in Boudica Prime. And I would recommend one of several commanders. You could either use Ashurbanipal, or you could use Artemisia, or you could use Honda Tadakatsu, or you could use Isong, or you could use Nebu. There are many great choices for who you use as your secondary. The default choice for many, many, many players should almost certainly just be the Isong. It's very powerful. The area of effect damage is in style, man, and it won't go out of style. That circle AoE is so good. So if you're bringing two pairs, Chisgule, Hermann Prime, Boudica with any of those as the secondary is the way to go. Now, I had thought that this should go the other way around, that it should look like this, and that it was kind of a slam dunk, like you would not run it any other way than Hermann Prime Ash, or really, actually, like that. Ashurbanipal with Hermann Prime, and then Boudica with Zhuge Liang. I thought that was the way to run it because Ashurbanipal on his expertise skill is going to make it so you get a random stat bonus every time you use an active skill, and Hermann Prime gives you free activations of your active skill. But it just didn't perform quite as well as running this the other way. And the reason is actually pretty easy to understand. I think it's that Zhuge Liang is just generating more rage, which means faster skill cycles, and the power of Zhuge Liang is so pushed that it's just more damage overall. So that's how I would run it. Zhuge Liang, Hermann Prime, Boudica with any of these other commanders as your secondary. I personally will probably be using Artemisia. I will not have maxed Ash. I don't plan to for my next KVK. Alternatively, Honda Tadakatsu for the March speed. Really great choice. Nebu, also a great choice for March speed. I mean, look, these are all fantastic. So let's go to 3 marches. If you go to 3 marches for archers, and I would not go to more than 3 marches of any one troop type these days. I've covered this in many videos, but the power level is just so pushed on new commanders. You always want to be able to take advantage of whatever new commanders are coming into the game. So you want to be able to ideally have like 2 marches of one troop type, 2 marches of another troop type, and then 1 march of the final troop type, right? For a 5 march combo in the field. If you get to 6 marches, you want 2-2-2. When you get to 7 marches, you want 3-2-2. Ideally. That way you can just constantly take advantage of the absolutely pushed power level on all these new commanders. So if I'm making a 3rd march here, this is where I'm going to start to either filter down some of these choices of what I might have paired with Boudica, or I would bring in Henry. So I think the way to run this would be probably Ash with Nebu or with Henry. And I feel like this is the strongest sort of 3 march configuration you could run, right? So keep the Zhuge Liang and Hermann Prime together. They're too damn good together. With Boudica, you have fewer options because you've pulled some of those into a 3rd march, but either Artemisia or Honda for the march speed, or Isong because you have him, or because you prefer the circle AoE. And then you take Ash with Nebu for big speed, big AoE, or you take Ash with Henry for a little bit more stability, just because he's more survivable. If you really want to be more survivable but do less damage, then you could use Henry as the primary, Nebu as the secondary. The support tree is pretty solid for that, but I think you do better overall in the open field with the skill tree. We're going to talk, remember, about talents in just a bit here. So lots of ways you could run that 3rd march, even if you don't have Ash. That would be really, really strong. You could even pull in Isong over here, right? Henry with Isong is great. Nebu with Isong is classic and strong. But I think this would be your best 3 march configuration. Now, at this point, you may be wondering, what about Tommy? And you're right, man. I thought Tommy would perform better. It is not performing as well as I thought it would, and this is why I test. If you believe in the words of Edward Deming, in God we trust, all others must bring data. So I went and I got the data. These are not my opinions. It's not the best data in the world, but the data I gathered showed Tommy was good, but not as good as I had hoped she would be. But when we talk about 4 marches, now I want to bring in Tommy. At that point, I think it makes sense to do that. So how would I do this? Well, if we're bringing in Tommy, it's got to be with Hermann Prime, obviously, which means that Zhuge Liang is suddenly free. So if we're freeing up the Zhuge Liang, you could put him with Boudica Prime and I think that would be a pretty solid place to be. We're also going to slice off the Henry here and the Yi-Song, because those will go together really, really well. And now you've got a pretty sweet 4-march configuration with Hermann Prime and Tommy, Boudica and Zhuge Liang, Nebu and Ash, Henry and Yi-Song. Now, you may say, you know what? As cool as that Tommy is, I'm not convinced. Okay. If you bench the Tommy, you still have great options here, right? So we bring in the Zhuge Liang, pair with Hermann Prime, looking great. Boudica can be with Artemisia. Boudica could be with Honda. You've got Nebu and Ash together that are doing great. And Henry and Yi-Song, great combo. In fact, I'd probably just switch this around to do Ash as the primary, just to have the stronger commander use their active skill sooner. But the, talent trees are close enough. It's not going to matter who's the primary there, really. I'd have to think about it a little more. And if we wanted to show that, like, you could bring in the Tommy, like, we could, we could leave it up here as like a Herman Tommy situation, but I don't think you need the Tommy in this world. And if you didn't have Asher Benapal, then you're much more interested in pulling in Tommy. All right. If you're like a older school archer player running 4 marches, but you're not going to max Ash, or you haven't yet, I guess the way that you would do that is a little bit more, honestly, like, I would actually maybe run it like this. Maybe that's the way to do it. Nebu with Zhuge Liang. Dude, I used that march, and it shredded. It's got defense, it's got health, it's got march speed. That's a great combo. There's a lot you can do with archers. They are very powerful. So let's jump in game, and let's get a look at the talents here and talk about what some of your best talent choices would be. For open field archers, and this is what we're talking about, battling in the open field, you want to go all the way to the top of the skill tree for Feral Nature. You want to go and you want to get Venomous Sting for the bonus skill damage. You get Razor Sharp to get some extra rage and some attack from Full Quiver. This is a very uncontroversial build. It is what I would recommend for Zhuge Liang, for Boudica Prime, for any commander that has the Archer skill designation. Now, if we're talking about support commanders, Archer support, like Hermann Prime or Henry, I've got great news for you. We've got a very easy build to run there. I actually can show you this from my main account, even though I haven't maxed Hermann Prime yet, because I can go in and show you on Amani. Good old Amani, warming the bench, and also, I guess, useful for holding this talent build. Here it is, the uncontroversial open field build. If you're using an Archer support tree commander, again, Hermann Prime and Henry, this is the build you're going to use. And it's actually beautifully elegant that you have exactly the talent points you need with only 2 talent points in Rejuvenate. This, by the way, is a common mistake in talent builds. You do not need 3 out of 3 because of the hidden rage cap. That is 220 rage per turn. You will almost certainly overrage if you put 3 points into this, so you may as well free up the point and have this pretty looking build where pretty much everything else is maxed out. And there it is, your talent build for Hermann Prime and Henry in the open field. This brings us to the equipment. We'll start with the top end, best of the best, and then we'll work our way back. If you want a super powerful endgame set, you can go with full archers. Now, you can improve upon the full archer situation by actually going with the KVK helmet and the KVK weapon. So if you have these, and you can go especially and crit them, these are going to be more powerful overall than the full set bonus. Historically, I have been saying that you need both the KVK helmet and KVK weapon to be crit in order to be better than the full archer set, as you see here. That is because you're losing out on the 5% health bonus, which is the 6-piece bonus. The other advantage, by the way, of having the KVK set is that the material cost went down. So like the punch for the materials is actually insane now. The only problem is you're going to need a lot of conquest coins to pick these up quickly, and that could just take a long time. But it would be better to have the KVK helmet and weapon maxed out in a perfect world, and that's how it should be. Now, from here, we can talk about the alternate route, which is to use the leadership set legs, and boots. Again, we're talking about endgame stuff here, but the reason people do that is specifically for the health. So I can show you that these have really solid health amounts. The leadership boots, 6% health. Siege March Speed doesn't do much for you, but the legs not only have health, 8%, but also March Speed for archers, which is pretty legit. So people use that combination. It's less stats total. They talent it for archers, and at least you get a 2-piece bonus here, which is going to give you 3% defense as well. So you can either run this as a mix-in with your archer set, or as a mix-in with the KVK weapons, the 2 pieces that are remaining, the chest and the gloves from the archer set, and then the leadership, legs, and boots, talented, of course, for archers. But this, of course, is very, very unrelatable if you're in the early game. So what is a good look for an early game player? And great news for you. Very good news for you. The only good epic set in the game is for archers. So just make the set. Very easy choices here. You make the helmet, the chest, the gloves, and the legs. You go with the health on the archer boots for a very long time. This is just amazing. Very good to see archer health here on your epic boots. And your weapon has defense. It's a great weapon. Golden Age is outstanding. Talent this thing, use it for a long time. Eventually, you'll get to legendaries, all right? Now, from an accessory standpoint, if you're in the early game, then, like, sure, you look at things like the flag for March Speed. Alternatively, you can go and take the lanes to reduce the counterattack you take, or the Silent Trial to reduce the rage on your enemy. And the Silent Trial is underestimated. I mean, it's very good, and rage reduction effects are powerful. But for the most part, in the open field for archers, you want to go with a Horn of Fury and a Ring of Doom to maximize your damage. There's not even really a lot of nuance to that. Both of those crank the damage a lot for the open field. I don't think that the Pendant of Eternal Night is the play. I have one. It mostly sits on the bench for me at this point, which actually is kind of tragic. And I would not really recommend Ancient Stratagems, with the exception of if you really just care about Canyon, then like, all right, if you want to be a Canyon warrior, you go for Ancient Stratagems. So from here, we can talk about some of the super budget options. Like if you're coming at me with, bro, Chisgule, I am not even this far along with epics. Like, dude, where do I start? Then obviously the blues are a great place to be. You've got defense on the legs. You've got health on the chest piece, which is outstanding. We look at the gloves over here, and it's not Calvin's Hand, but Saint's Song. You get some moderate attack out of that. For your helmet, we can get a look here. And at the blue tier, you're actually not a great spot. Jeez. Looks like your, Helm of the Phoenix is pretty legit, actually. 4% archer defense on a green. Dude, that's actually kind of crazy how much defense you get on that. But, Revival Helmet's a big upgrade, and it's got a set bonus, right? So that's where you ultimately want to get to. And for weapon, it's pretty obvious here. You go with the Staff of the Lost. It's a good play. And I think did we cover boots? You've got edged boots, which give you a little bit of archer attack, and that's kind of it. That's what you use initially. I guess even sturdy boots aren't bad. The defense is actually pretty legit on these sturdy boots. A nice starting point. Now, with regard to formations, I mentioned I would cover this very, very briefly. I'm not sure how much there is to talk about here, but you're going to pick Wedge. All the archers are dealing skill damage. Wedge is the way to go for the open field. Skill damage dealt gets more exciting the more skill damage you deal. So, yeah, these commanders that do circle AoEs do a lot of skill damage. This is my best archer armament set on my main account. And it's, honestly, was great at the time that I formed it, but has really, if you can believe it, fallen behind compared to what other people are running these days. But you want to prioritize health and all damage as sort of top tier choices. You can see I've gotten robust over here for more health. I can show you that on this particular armament. This armament is beautiful. It's ready to be inscribed, but I don't have any, so GG. I've prioritized those to infantry. This I've rolled the max number of times. I got defense and literal lowest roll for all damage is what it is. I take less skill damage, and I deal extra counterattack. It's fine. And a big one to look out for is over here. You really want to get on your flag, ideally something like cohesive, or even better, if you can get the inscription assertive. Damage while you're on the map is kind of where you want to be. There's even modifications here for like whether or not something is surrounded, which is something that you'll be doing frequently. But cohesive is like, it's pretty easy to get your hands on this one. I feel like I get cohesive fairly regularly. This only works when you're over 50% of units, which is obviously not as good as just going with assertive, where the limitation is you have to be on the map. But I mean, 2% all damage on the map? Yeah, man. Take that every single time. What is Pursuer? This is when you're super low. This is like a garrison and rally thing, maybe. I don't know. 20% is like a really low number. I'm pretty sure there's something else related. Oh, here it is. Strategic. That's the one. 2% extra damage to surrounded troops. So this is a big one because you're very likely to be using multiple marches in the field anyways, and you're going to surround stuff all the time. So strategic is really, really good, and assertive is really, really good. Cohesive is your backup option. And like this inscription ends up like, dude, 2% all damage? What are we talking about? That's a lot of leverage. That and, you know, health is really good. And gosh, the legendary inscriptions are insane. But my hope is that they'll make inscriptions in the future and this whole system more about managing your inscriptions to make really like, you know, customized marches. But we'll see. We'll see where the formation system goes. If you enjoyed the vid, throw a like on here. Consider subscribing. If you're looking to see some of that testing for Hermann Prime, I'll have a card in the end screen in just a second. Alternatively, if you're looking for my overall guidance for which commanders are great to invest in as of right now in Rise of Kingdoms, card will be in the end screen for that one in just a second as well. Smash that subscribe button so you don't miss another video, especially if you got value. Smash the like button as well. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.